close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join
Welcome
us
to
for the
Turn the
next
Page,
episode.
the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Welcome to Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. This is Jessikah. I will be your host today, and I'm here with the author of a book called Dandelion is Dead, Rosey Storey. This was just a really, I don't even know how to define this book. It's got a lot going on in it. It's a little bit it plays with like rom-com tropes, but it's also about grief and about messy, complicated family situations, and it was really just sort of an interesting ride altogether. So first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so true. I just say it's a story about life.
Yeah,
There's so much going on that really it's a story about life.
it is, and it really is like there's no perfect characters in it, and I feel like that's kind of the point. Yeah, where so first of all, in your words, what is the book about, and how did the idea come to you?
Okay, so to set up the premise of the book, well, I'm Rosie, and my debut novel, which comes out in January, is called Dandelion is Dead. I live in London. Um, And at the start of the novel, we meet Poppy, who, in the throes of grief, logs into her dead sister's dating app and she replies to a message from a handsome stranger called Jake. And what starts as an impulsive act and a way for Poppy to feel close to her sister again in some ways spirals into something precarious and very real for both Poppy and Jake. They start dating, and the whole time, well, at the start at least, he thinks she's Dandelion. So it's a story about life, love, personal authenticity, and most importantly, it's about hope.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like it's really easy for people just at first glance to be like, oh, well, Poppy, she's, taking on this other identity. She's deceiving Jake, and she is, but like the way that the story is written, you can really empathize with what she's going through, and like she knows she's making this really poor decision. And in the meantime, Jake, who's idealizing this idea of Dandelion, is a really messy person too. Like he is not just sort of an innocent bystander. He has also made some mistakes in his life and is dealing with them on a daily basis. I thought that it was a really, like I said, an interesting story, and you do play a lot with some of those romantic comedy tropes. One thing about romantic comedies that, we see, and they are always, or they had in the past kind of always been like set up to be like these ideal romances, is like there's always this deception that
Mm.
starts the relationship in one way or another. Be it like is somebody's not telling somebody something, someone opens the door in a mansion and they assume that the person who opened the door is the millionaire and not the, whatever. I mean, there's always like that little bit of somebody not telling the other person the true the true facts about themselves. And um we know very early on from Poppy's point of view, and not just because of the title of the book, that she's really trying to cope with the grief of losing Dandelion, who was not just her sister, but was just this like larger than life person to so many people, to the point that Poppy herself almost vanished into Dandelion's existence. So, like, that felt to me sort of really, really emotional while I was
Yeah.
reading the choices that she was making.
Well, I think, yeah, you touched on so many things there. And one thing was, about the kind of false identity, which is like a romantic comedy trope and kind of goes back to Shakespeare and probably before. But it also, I think, a little bit happens every day. I wanted to explore the kind of do a deep dive into how we might present ourselves online or on dating apps. You can be scrolling a dating app where your kind of best self is out there looking fabulous. And you're sitting on the sofa, hungover, feeling terrible. I mean, there's always like a tiny lie, really, of reality, and what's going on online. So I kind of played with that a bit. And then to your point about the sisters, and that was also, so I think my first starting point was exploring personal authenticity. I really wanted to kind of get stuck into a theme that I knew I could find interesting for every day for years. And then with the sisters, the way I think of them is sort of two halves of a whole. They're so different, but they're completely dependent on each other. And they were sort of, for the 39 years that they lived together, were alive together, were like a yin and yang. And then Dandelion dies when she's 39, which has happened 7 months before the book starts. So we know that's happened. And then, the kind of more yin sister, the more shy one, the quieter one, she's not as confident, is suddenly left in the blazing sun, sort of thinking, gosh, who am I without my big sister?
And then Jake is a single father
Yeah.
who is, like I said, he's made mistakes, and everything kind of unfolds in a really interesting way. Like, you figure out what everybody's secrets are quietly. So I'm not really going to go too much into it, but he is dealing with the fact that his ex-wife has moved on. He has a
Yeah.
young son who he loves. Um, and yeah, like I said, like, he put this image of Dandelion on a pedestal, but the person he's talking to is Poppy, and the person
Mm.
who's, no matter how much Poppy tries to kind of superimpose Dandelion onto herself, she still comes out authentically Poppy, and that is who Jake is slowly beginning to fall for. Meanwhile, he's not necessarily being truthful to himself about his own mistakes. And again, like, I thought that it was just such an interestingly messy setup, just with a bunch of characters. But I really, really also loved the familial relationships, and not just the relationship between Poppy and Dandelion, which you see, glimpses of. There's also Poppy and her parents, and Jake and his father, who have complicated relationships. Um, yeah, I mean, this is your debut novel. Had you written anything before that's like in the drawer, because
I
there's is so
really,
full.
I really have. I really have. So I I wrote a whole other book before this. And that is in the drawer. So I have been writing, I mean, I've really been writing books for as long as I can remember, but kind of, just secretly, just sort of squirreling away on the side of work, on the side of school and life. And then I was working on a book before this. And when I was around 30, around a decade ago, I thought, okay, this book, I'm going to quit my corporate career. I'm going to become a novelist. And I had had great feedback, etc. And sort of 3 years of me writing that other book, and like 9 drafts of a manuscript went by. And I sort of failed hard at it, really. And then thought, oh God, this has not worked out. So I went crawling back to work, to a new job, and and kind of thought I'd given up on the dream, and it just felt like it had spectacularly failed. And then around 2020, which was probably only about 6 months after I had stopped writing the previous book, I started writing Dandelion is Dead. So many years has gone into a book previously, and then I started this one in 2020. I just couldn't keep away from writing. And so this is my second novel, but it is my debut.
Are the idea of familial and interpersonal relationships, was that always something that you enjoyed writing about specifically?
Mm. Yeah, definitely. I think I'm just fascinated with that and the psychology of human dynamics and people and relationships. So and I think that was one thing I learned actually from the process of my whole first book is what I could felt like I could do well and what I was less good at. And I really feel that the sort of relationships and dynamics and psychology and familial stuff was where I, found it most easy. Um, so yeah, I loved all that. And I also think we are all obviously a product of our families and stuff. So I do like to bring them in and the childhoods are referenced and we meet both Jake's father and Poppy's parents in this novel as well.
I love how each chapter and each part, it's not just about the lie or the lies that follow it or, the lies that characters tell themselves. It's also about secrets.
Mm.
And the most close to the chest secrets that are kept by the characters are revealed little by little as the story unfolds. Did you know all of them while you were writing the story?
What secrets are you thinking of? Can you give
Uh,
me? Actually, I don't want you to give it all away, but
yeah, that's pretty much it, just in general. I mean, you know, there's I don't want to give it away,
yeah,
but we know Dandelion is dead. It's in the title. We don't know really
right.
the details of it
No, I mean,
right away.
I'm definitely not, sometimes you hear people talking about a plotter and a pantser, and I don't sit down knowing exactly what's going to happen. I wish I had a plan. I'm working on my second book now, and I wish I knew everything that was going to happen, but I don't. So it's really through the process of writing that it kind of reveals itself, or I have to figure it out. So I think there's a lot of things that are revealed in Dandelion is Dead, and I think they probably just came as it went, as I got to know the characters better. And I always think, that's why as you work through the novel and you get to know the characters better, that more and more comes out that for me personally wouldn't be able to sort of appear in the planning stage.
Did you have a character that you were not expecting to become sort of more prominent in the novel? Like one of the side characters, was there anybody who just really spoke to you more than you expected?
Um, I love writing. I mean, I often feel that I take on the mood of the chapter that I'm writing. So if I'm writing something sad, I will feel sad, and I'll probably feel sad that evening, and it sort of affects me. So if I'm writing something that I think's funny or a bit sort of cheeky and silly, that makes my day happier. So some of the characters that are sort of a bit silly and fun to write, I love them. So for example, I mean, I love writing Jake. I really enjoyed writing, Jake, who's a sort of a bit of a silly man at the start, and he goes on a journey as they both do. Um, but you reference he's got an ex-wife, and he and his ex-wife have broken up, and now she is with a younger guy. So his ex-wife Zoe is 40 as well, and she's now with a Danish guy who's in his late 20s, and he's a yoga teacher, and we know he's incredibly hot and perfect in every way. And writing the scenes with Jake and Jan were really fun.
They were so much fun to
Yeah.
read. Like they really were just sort of, I know you're supposed to feel bad for Jake in this situation, but it was really, really hard not to laugh
Yeah.
when you were reading those scenes.
Yeah, he's jealous of him. He's really, it's important to me to write about the struggles, the kind of pressures on women in society as, maybe they approach middle age, which all my characters are really, but also men. And I think Jake is sort of struggling with can he be a good man if he's done a bad thing? He doesn't feel manly enough. And then his ex-wife starts going out with this babe, and that just makes him, you know, feel jealous and small. So yeah, we do feel bad for him, but I like to kind of bring in the humor in those scenes. And there's a scene near the end that I won't say, but between those two, Jan and Jake, and that was really fun when Jake behaves very, very badly.
Well, it was a great book. I'm actually quite excited to hear what you are working on next, if you're allowed to talk about it.
Oh, I'm allowed. I wish I had some good information for you. I think what I've learned is that I'm a really slow worker, or maybe I always knew that. So I'm working on my second novel. It will be in the same genre, really. I think it's people around a similar age. This one's split between London, and it starts in Paris actually. Um, and it's people figuring their lives out, dealing with love and lust and who they're meant to be. And obviously, there's some cheeky lies in there as well. But I think, like Dandelion is Dead, my sort of main theme is personal authenticity. This one's really, it starts with a kind of obsessional love. But I can't tell you too much because I don't know the ending. I can see up until halfway, and then the rest I've got to figure out.
Well, I'm looking forward to whatever you've got next.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing this story with us. Thank you for coming on the show. Yeah, so a good way to start out your new year is by reading Dandelion is Dead. It will really make you feel things. I mean, it is a really good book to just kind of refresh with, I think.
Good. I'm so glad you think that. And I really think that I say to people that the title's a bit of a red herring. Don't be scared by it being about death and grief because really it's about life and hope. And I hope it makes people smile.
Thank you so much.
Thank
This
you.
was Jessica with Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. Our guest today was,
Rosey Story.
and we are going to close this chapter.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.